All right, so we're on chapter 5 for the BFG. Who can tell me what's already happened so far? Go ahead, raise your hand if you remember. Judah, do you remember? No? Okay. Sheena, do you remember?
No.
David, you want to share the recap? No? Okay, so far, Sophie is in an orphanage, and she looks out her orphanage in the witching hour, so the middle of the night when nobody else is up, and she sees a giant. The giant ends up seeing her and scoops her up and goes running with her to some kind of village in a rock. Let's see what happens. Ha! Shouted the giant, walking forward and rubbing his hands together. What has us got here? His booming voice rolled around the walls of the cave like a burst of thunder. The BFG. The giant picked up the trembling Sophie with one hand and carried her across the cave and put her on the table. Now he really is going to eat me, Sophie thought. The giant sat down and stared hard at Sophie. He had truly enormous ears. Each one was as big as the wheel of a truck, and he seemed to be able to move them inward and outward from his head as he wished. I is hungry, the giant boomed. He grinned, showing massive square teeth. The teeth were very white and very square, and they sat in his mouth like huge slices of white bread. Please don't eat me, Sophie stammered. The giant let out a bellow of laughter. Just because I is a giant, you think I is a man-gobbling cannibal? He shouted. You is about right. Giants is all cannibal and murderful, and they does gobble up human beings. We is a giant country now. Giants everywhere around. Out there, us has a famous bone-crunching giant crunching up 2 whoopsie wifling human beings for supper every night. Noise is ear-bursting. Noise is crunching bones and crackling cracks for miles around. Ouch, Sophie said. Bone-crunching giant only gobbles human beings. From the conversation toward a slightly less dangerous kind of food. You is trying to change the subject, the giant said sternly. We is having an interesting babblement about the taste of human beings. The human beings is not a vegetable. Oh, but the bean is a vegetable, Sophie said. Not the human bean, the giant said. The human being has 2 legs, and a vegetable has no legs at all. Sophie didn't argue anymore. The last thing she wanted to do was make a giant cross. The human being, the giant went on, is coming in billions of different flavors. For instance, human beings from Wales is tasty, very wishy like fish. There's something very fishy about whales. You mean whales? Sophie said. Wales is something quite different. Wales is Wales. So here, if you look at these 2 different words, one is Wales, the country, and one is the whales, the mammal in the ocean. The giant said, don't gobble funk around with words. I will now give you another example. Human beings from Jersey has a most disgustable woolly tickle on the tongue. The giant said, human beings from Jersey is tasting like cardigans. You mean jerseys? Sophie said. You are once again gobble-funking, the giant shouted. Don't do it. This is serious. And snitching subjects. May I continue? Please do, Sophie said. Danes from Denmark is tasting ever so much like dogs, the giant went on. Of course, Sophie said. They taste of Great Danes. Wrong, cried the giant, slapping his thigh. Danes from Denmark is tasting doggy because they is tasting of Labradors. Shannon, do you have a question? No? Okay. Then what do people of Labradors taste like? Sophie asked. Danes, the giant cried triumphantly. Great Danes. Aren't you getting a bit mixed up? Sophie said. I is very mixed up, giant, the giant said, but I does my best, and I is not nearly as mixed up as other giants. I know one who gallops all the way to Wilmington for his supper. Wilmington? Sophie asked. Where's Wellington? Your head is full of squashed flies, the giant said. Wellington is in New Zealand. The human beings in Wellington has an especially scrumptiously dumptious taste, so says the welly-eating giants. What do the people of Wellington taste of? Sophie asked. Boots, the giant said. Of course. I should have known. Sophie decided that this conversation had now gone on long enough. If she was going to be eaten, she'd rather get it over with and done with right away than to keep hanging around anymore. What sort of human beings do you eat? She asked, trembling. Me? Shouted the giant, this mighty voice making the glass jar rattle on the shelves. Me gobbling up human beings. This I never. The others? Yes. All the others is gobbling them up every night, but not me. I is a freaky giant. I is a nice and jumpy giant. I is the only nice and jumpy giant in the giant country. I is the big, friendly giant. I is the BFG. What is your name? My name is Sophie, Sophie said, hardly daring to believe the good news she had just heard. The giants. Next chapter. Let's read it.
You have a picture.
Well, actually, we'll continue the giants in the next video. Make sure today that you make your beds and you help around your house and you clean up your dishes. Have a good day.